I initiated the divorce, deeming a financially struggling spouse to be of little value. My world was shaken when, during a business trip, my husband abruptly declared not only his intent to divorce, but also his simultaneous marriage to his lover. To add insult to injury, he accused me of marrying him solely for his wealth and demanded I forfeit any claims to our property. Confronting my indifferent husband, who had always treated me with disdain since our marriage, led to his unraveling and a downward spiral to rock bottom. I am Karen, 35 years old, raised by a single mother since my father's passing in kindergarten. Despite the financial challenges, we found happiness as a family of 3. Even as an adult with a decent salary, my frugal habits persisted from childhood. I married John, a wealthy man I met through an acquaintance, drawn to his kindness and the new world he presented. Our differing views on money and gender roles emerged after marriage. While John envisioned a traditional household, I was dedicated to my career and financial independence. Before marriage, John suggested I become a homemaker, assuming I would embrace traditional domestic roles. However, I expressed my desire to continue working until we had children, emphasizing the financial benefits. Although I managed to convince him, the reality of balancing work and household chores proved challenging. Despite being a full-time employee, my days were consumed with domestic responsibilities, leaving little time for us as a couple. In contrast, John, adopting a traditional husband role, contributed nothing to household tasks. While he witnessed my busy schedule, he simply indulged in dinner and relaxation. Upon returning home, balancing work and domestic responsibilities took a toll on our relationship, prompting me to question if this was the essence of a marriage. Despite my efforts, I hesitated to voice my dissatisfaction, fearing he might insist I quit my job. Despite his lack of contribution at home, I had hoped that the arrival of children would bring about a positive change in our relationship. Unfortunately, our connection had grown distant, casting doubt on the possibility of expanding our family. Feeling the urgency to discuss this matter, I approached John. "Hey, we should start considering having kids, right?" I said. "Huh, kids? You're quite energetic, considering you're tired from work and chores," he replied. "It's not about that. I want to have children. We haven't been married that long, but I'm already over 30. Women have a limited time to have children, and it's getting harder for me to conceive as I get older. It's almost too late. But we don't need kids. If we have one, you'll expect me to help, right? You know I'm busy with work, and I won't help with child rearing." Declaring you won't help with child rearing even before they're born is strange, isn't it? I plan to raise them alone, but shouldn't you at least have the intention to help? It's your child too. Child rearing is your job. I'm working to support the family, so I definitely won't help with the kids. You'll just complain that I don't help, making me the bad guy. You must have been indoctrinated with poverty and lots of kids since birth. We're not poor. We don't need kids. End of discussion. John abruptly ended the conversation, retreating to his room alone in the living room. Tears overwhelmed me. My desire for children was not only rejected, but my upbringing was also mocked. Following this incident, our relationship deteriorated rapidly, communication became scarce, and the possibility of having children seemed more distant. As I continued to juggle work and home responsibilities, taking on significant projects at work, I found myself increasingly distant from John. One day, when informing him about an upcoming business trip, his unexpected kindness surprised me. He wished me well and hinted at a big surprise upon my return. Despite having given up on him, his smile shook my resolve. However, my faint hope was shattered upon returning home. The front door wouldn't open, and John revealed the first surprise. He had changed the locks. The second surprise was the announcement of our divorce. He claimed to have forged my signature and submitted the papers with a friend as a witness. Inside, he presented a document for me to sign, waiving my rights to property division. Protesting the false accusations, I insisted on a mutual renunciation of property rights, intending to make it a public document. John stubbornly retorted, redoing the document on his computer, initiating a tense exchange. As I left the house, he continued to scorn me for being poor, even contemplating discarding my belongings. A few days later, John, in a state of panic, called me. "What do you mean? I haven't done anything. Why are you panicking?" I asked. I have a lot of questions. First, I was told to leave the apartment. "Oh, you were still living there? That's not allowed. It's a new month. You're trespassing." Trespassing? But it's my house. Are you okay? Did you forget that it was a company apartment I rented? I was the leaseholder, so naturally, you can't live there anymore. That's ridiculous. How could you do this? I can't believe you didn't know. I'm not the one who should be accused of doing things on my own. Didn't I tell you that you can't just change the locks of a rental apartment? It's my house. I can change the locks if I want. Didn't you listen? It was my leased apartment. Even if you were the leaseholder, the owner is the apartment manager. You can't change the locks without informing them. Is that so? Also, I terminated the lease. While you changed the locks, I was allowed to live there until this month. I was planning to return, but now you've unlawfully altered someone else's property, which could be criminal damage. Wait, why did you terminate it so early? Criminal damage? Is that why the police are at the front door now? I'm too scared to open it, he confessed. Don't worry. It's probably not for trespassing or criminal damage. It's better to talk to them. Why do I know about the police? Because I reported you for filing the divorce papers yourself. It seems like you've committed crimes like forgery and fraudulent use of a private document. Divorce papers can be filed by one person, but only with mutual agreement and personal signatures. Since John forged my signature and the witness, it's obvious that it's a crime. But he seemed unaware of his guilt. I continued pressing further. So the divorce papers you submitted are invalid, and your marriage with Susan can't happen either. How do you know about Susan? Did you think I knew nothing? I had a private detective agency thoroughly investigate your affair with Susan. It was a busy time at work, and coordinating with the agency was tough. Plus, you even held a grand wedding ceremony while I was supposedly on a business trip. Are you okay? Your business trip was a lie. Yes, I took leave from work despite being busy to do some research and prepare documents. I knew about you bringing Susan home. It would have been impossible to gather this evidence while working. After I revealed everything, John was speechless and seemed quite downcast, even over the phone. Then he pleaded with me, "Please don't tell Susan I'm divorced." Why would I? There's no such fact to tell. Really, thank you. Are you misunderstanding something? When did you become divorced? That fake divorce paper is invalid, remember? So legally, you're still my husband, not divorced. What? So, since you committed adultery, well, legally, my husband, Susan needs to pay compensation. I sent the demand for reparation to her house yesterday by express delivery. She didn't know you were married, right? Then I can't withdraw the claim at this point. I already knew Susan believed John was single, but I deliberately sent the reparation demand. Susan hasn't contacted me yet, so maybe she hasn't received the letter. It should arrive soon. Should you be on the phone with me when you also have to deal with the police? You're busy. I'll ignore the police. I won't be arrested. I'm going to Susan's house now to get the letter back before she or her family can accept it. Then he hung up. He probably went straight to Susan's house to wait for the postman at the front door. I knew it would be futile because the letter was sent as registered mail to Susan only. Even if he waited for the postman, he couldn't receive it. A few hours later, a dispirited John called me. According to him, there was an incident when the postman arrived. Finally, I'll take that envelope. Who are you? You don't live here, right? I'm practically a resident here since I'm married. I have the right to receive the mail. I see, but I can't give you this envelope. It's registered mail for Susan only. What? Give it to me. Absolutely not. If you're so eager, ask Susan for permission. What's going on here? Oh, John, what's all this noise? What's happening? Ah, Susan, this is registered mail for you. This man insisted on taking it. Sorry for the disturbance. Now, I'll be on my way. What's this? A demand for reparation? John, you were married. What's going on here? Sorry, it's just. She's an ex-wife from a long time ago. I was embarrassed to say I'm divorced. I'm sorry for keeping it secret. But it's strange, isn't it? We haven't been dating long, and a demand for reparation? If you were divorced before we started dating, there shouldn't be any problem, right? Well, my ex-wife is crazy. Maybe she's demanding reparation out of spite because I got married. That was the excuse he gave, but such a lie was quickly exposed. The envelope included a letter I wrote, along with my contact information, so Susan called me directly. In that call, I told her about the affair, the invalid divorce, and that they had a wedding ceremony while he was still married to me. Although they had a wedding ceremony, they hadn't submitted the marriage registration yet. John wanted to submit it on April Fool's Day, so it was still pending. He probably delayed submitting the marriage registration due to uncertainty about whether the divorce was finalized. After being exposed, John fled from Susan's house and shamelessly contacted me again. I still had something to tell him, so we'd agreed to meet at a nearby cafe. As soon as I arrived, John said, "Karen, please withdraw the reparation claim. Let's pretend we've been separated for a long time and officially divorced. Now, I can apologize to Susan for being secretly divorced and maybe cover it up. You think I'm desperate to stay married to you. I was going to file for divorce anyway, but since you cheated, you'll pay reparation. Just trying to extort money from me, huh? Typical of the poor. You have such a poor heart. Depending on my answer, everything can change. There's still an option where we don't divorce. If I say no, you can't reject it, meaning you can't marry Susan, and your marital status will be exposed. Fine, I'll pay the reparation. Just divorce me now. Sign here." Then about property division. How much more do you want to take from me? Reparation should be enough. Remember, we agreed to waive property division, right? So let's make it official. All right, you're not as bad as I thought. Thank you. We then went to a public notary, made a public document for reparation and property division, and then to the city hall to submit the divorce papers, finalizing our divorce. Relieved, I exchanged final words with John. Glad we don't have to divide property. What are you saying? I'm the one who benefits from that. By the way, do you even have assets after paying me reparation? Susan will also claim damages. She mentioned charging you for the wedding expenses. That's impossible. I'm marrying Susan. She can't claim that. We're divorced now, so there should be no problem. Still living in a fantasy. You committed marriage fraud. You had a wedding while still married. You think Susan still believes you? Marriage fraud? That's ridiculous. Susan will believe me. Believe that if you want. I heard from Susan directly. Also, weren't the guests at your wedding paid actors? You still owe them, you know. About that, I haven't paid them yet. What does it matter to you? You could have just taken property division and been better off. That's what I wanted to tell you. Even if we had divided property, you would have benefited more. What are you talking about, poor woman? Your family is poor, and you only make $155,000 a year, right? Even if you got a raise, it would be barely $20,000. You don't have any property. You keep calling me poor, so I thought you might be mistaken. Yes, my salary is indeed $115,000. But you know I work for a foreign company, right? It seems you have no interest in me, but I became a director of the American branch. It's not $115,000 per year, but per month. $155,000 per month. So that's an annual income of $1.8 million. You're still bad with numbers. How do you manage to keep a job? It's $180,000 a year. $180,000? That can't be true. Of course, I haven't had the chance to spend such an amount, so I've been saving it for the future. The savings from before our marriage aren't part of the property division, but there's still a considerable amount since our marriage. So I couldn't have received half of that in the property division. You were my spouse after all. I'll get the divorce papers corrected. Are you okay after all the contempt? You think I'd gladly undo the divorce? If you have that much money, you don't need to claim reparation, right? It's just a small amount for you. He who laughs at 1 cent will weep for 1 cent. This reparation is for the mental anguish you caused me. I'd like to claim more, honestly. And since we've made it official, make sure to pay it, even in installments. I'll be penniless. Also, don't go back to that apartment. Your belongings should have been moved to your parents' house by now. You thought I had few belongings, but that was because I had already moved most of them. Were you that indifferent to me? I can have so little, so I have to go back to my parents' house. They don't know anything yet, do they? Let me explain. Don't say anything. I've already told them everything. It's only right to explain why we're divorcing. Oh, and your father said, don't ever step over our threshold again, so I have nowhere to go. He collapsed, and I left the cafe. Later, I heard he caused trouble at the police station. Despite my advice, he went back to the apartment. He sat there aimlessly in the empty apartment until the manager called the police, and he was taken away. I'm not sure if it was for obstructing public duties, trespassing, or for the falsified divorce papers. Eventually, his parents took responsibility for him. After talking with me and learning about Susan, they decided that apologizing and paying damages to Susan's family came first. They went to Susan's house to apologize, kneeling in front of her family. They settled everything without pressing charges for marriage fraud, even paying for the wedding expenses. I had expected them to sue, so it was disappointing they didn't. So, I decided to pursue legal action against him for forging the divorce papers. John offered a settlement, but I didn't withdraw the lawsuit. I didn't want him to think everything could be solved with money. I wanted him to be convicted and understand the gravity of his actions, even if it cost time and money. I left everything to my lawyer, so it wasn't too burdensome for me. Even though it took time, John was exposed for his actions and the marriage fraud at his company. He couldn't stay there anymore after being detained by the police and subsequently absent without leave. He was eventually fired. He ended up living at his parents' home, working all day at a relative's construction company. His father took all his earnings, leaving him with no income. I thought his parents wouldn't abandon him, but they were stricter than I expected. They paid my reparation and Susan's compensation, planning to make him work like a horse until he repaid everything. He lived in a shed-like place with no electricity, receiving only $5 per day for food, deducted from his salary. They planned to hound and kick him out once he repaid everything. A harsh fate after years of hard work. I was offered a position at the head office abroad, so I moved overseas after the divorce was finalized. I worried John might come to me for help or harbor resentment, but moving abroad alleviated those concerns. I thought work would be my partner for a while, but soon I found a new relationship. I'm now dating a foreign executive at our head office, and I'm pregnant with plans to marry soon. I told him everything about my past and my ex-husband, and he's understanding. I'll take maternity leave and plan to return to work later, supported by him. He's enthusiastic about taking paternity leave and co-parenting, showing a different cultural perspective. After being tormented by my ex-husband, I finally feel I'm grasping true happiness and confidence in building the happy family I'd always dreamed of. Many suffered due to selfish spouses, and while divorce isn't always the right choice, enduring silence isn't a virtue. It's important to know that honest discussions can lead to resolutions, and sometimes divorce is a necessary option.
Hi, I'm Amanda. 3 years ago, my life flipped upside down when Dad died suddenly. Everything changed after that. Mom was drowning in grief when Greg came along. He presented himself as the savior we didn't know we needed. Calm, collected, and financially savvy. At first, it felt like he was pulling us back from the brink. But it didn't take long for his helpful advice to morph into suffocating control. Now, our house feels like a perpetual twilight zone because Greg insists on minimal lighting to cut costs. Even our landlord, Mr. Thompson, gives us strange looks during inspections, especially after catching Greg unscrewing hallway light bulbs to shave pennies off the bill. Mom, Linda, Used to be vibrant, decisive. These days, she's a shadow of herself, agonizing over every dollar spent. Adding to the misery is Greg's mother, Barbara, who has practically taken up permanent residence on our couch. She's Greg's biggest fan, clapping for every absurd cost-cutting stunt. Look how clever my Greg is. She gushes as he fishes used tea bags out of the trash. 5 uses minimum, that's how you save real money. Greg's obsession goes beyond frugality. It's pathological. Appliances stay unplugged unless in use. The hot water heater is set so low that showers feel like punishment. My best friend Kate stopped visiting after Greg implemented a toilet paper rule, 1 square per use. And don't forget, guests must bring their own. We're not running a charity here, Greg would bark. Every penny saved is a penny earned. Barbara always backed him up. Young people today just don't understand the value of money. Last week, during another icy 3-minute shower, timed of course, a sharp pain stabbed through my lower right side. I thought I could brush it off, but by evening I was doubled over, trembling with fever. Mom, I called weakly from the bathroom. Something's really wrong. I think I need to go to the hospital. Greg appeared in the doorway before Mom could respond, Barbara trailing behind him like a shadow. Hospital, he snapped. Do you have any idea what emergency rooms charge? It's probably just gas. But look at her. Mom protested, her voice wavering. She's white as a sheet. Linda, don't coddle her. Barbara scolded. In my day, we didn't run to the doctor for every little stomachache. Ambulances cost thousands, Greg barked, pacing the hallway. You want to throw away months of careful saving for this? She just needs to toughen up. The room spun around me. I clutched the sink, trying to stay upright, but my legs gave out. As I crumpled to the floor, Mom's panicked voice broke through. I'm calling an ambulance, he said, reaching for her phone. Don't you dare, Greg warned, snatching it from her hand. I won't pay for. Darkness swallowed me before he could finish. When I came to, I was sprawled on the cold bathroom tiles, Mom kneeling beside me. Her trembling hands hovered over her phone, her face pale with fear. She needs help, Mom said, standing shakily to face Greg. Barbara inserted herself, her voice sharp. Linda, you're being hysterical. Back in my day, I gave my Greg ginger ale for stomach pains, saved hundreds in medical bills. You should try that. This is different, Mom shouted, moving toward the door. If you won't let me call an ambulance, I'll drive her myself. Greg laughed, the sound cruel and triumphant. Oh really? Looking for these? He dangled the car keys before shoving them into his pocket. I've hidden the spare set too. Nobody's going anywhere until she stops this attention-seeking act. Right, Mother? Absolutely right, dear, Barbara chimed in. A little rest and a cold compress will fix her right up. Through the haze of pain, I tried to speak, to tell them how much worse it was getting. But all that came out was a strangled gasp. I could only manage a weak moan. The bathroom tiles seemed to spin beneath me, and despite the cold floor, my skin burned like fire. She's getting worse, Mom's voice cracked with fear. Please, Greg, she needs help. What she needs is a lesson in financial responsibility, Greg roared, his face twisting with fury. Every hospital visit is hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. Do you want us to end up in the poorhouse? Barbara chimed in, pressing a damp cloth to my forehead, which felt like sandpaper against my burning skin. Nobody believes in home remedies anymore, she lamented. Young people today run to doctors for every sniffle and ache. The front door creaked open, interrupting Barbara's lecture. Hello, is anyone here? A familiar voice called out. The door was ajar. Movie night, remember. Sorry I'm early, but I brought popcorn. Kate stopped mid-sentence as her eyes landed on me. Oh my God, Amanda. She dropped her bags and rushed to my side, her hand brushing my forehead. She yanked it back instantly. She's burning up. What's going on? Why hasn't anyone called an ambulance? Now listen here, Greg growled, stepping toward her, his face red with anger. This is a family matter. We don't need outsiders interfering with our financial decisions. Financial decisions? Kate's voice dripped with disbelief as she glanced between Greg, Barbara, and my terrified mother. Realization dawned on her face. Without another word, Kate pulled out her phone. Don't you dare. Greg lunged for it. Do you know what the deductible is for emergency services? $5,000. I won't let you bankrupt this family with unnecessary medical bills. Unnecessary? Kate's voice turned ice cold as she dialed 911. She's barely conscious, Greg, Kate snapped, holding the phone to her ear. Barbara wrung her hands dramatically. In my day, people die from appendicitis rather than bankrupt their families, Kate retorted, already giving the dispatcher our address. Greg's face turned purple as he screamed, "You'll be responsible for the deductible, every penny of it. $5,000. Do you hear me? 5. But Kate wasn't listening. Mom broke down in tears of relief as the sound of approaching sirens pierced the night air. Greg spun around, panic etched on his face. Who called them? Who called them? He pointed an accusing finger at Kate. You had no right. The ambulance screeched to a halt outside, and Greg rushed to block the front door with Barbara trailing behind him. No one called for medical help here, Barbara shouted through the door. My son handles all family health decisions. Ma'am. A paramedic's firm voice answered from the other side. We received an emergency call. Step aside, or we'll have to involve the police. Barbara threw open the window, shouting to the gathering neighbors, nothing to see here. Just another young person seeking attention. In my day, we dealt with illness at home, like sensible people. Mrs. Peterson from next door recorded the chaos on her phone, and more neighbors gathered, whispering and pointing. Sir, move away from the door, a second paramedic warned, radio in hand. We have a report of a critical patient. Mr. Thompson, our landlord, suddenly appeared behind the paramedics. I'm the property owner, he said firmly. You have my full permission to enter. With that, the paramedics pushed past Greg and Barbara, rushing to my side. Their faces turned grim as they checked my vitals. Temperature is dangerously high, one of them said. Severe abdominal rigidity, possible peritonitis. The ride to the hospital was a blur of sirens and voices. Greg and Barbara followed in their car, calling everyone they knew to complain about wasteful medical expenses. In the emergency room, the doctor's face darkened after examining me. She has a burst appendix, she said gravely. The infection is spreading. We need to operate immediately, or she won't survive. Surgery, Greg exploded. Do you have any idea what that costs? Just give her some antibiotics. Sir, the doctor's voice was like steel. Without immediate intervention, your stepdaughter could die. Die? Barbara scoffed. Doctors always exaggerate to run up bills. In my day. I've seen enough, Mr. Thompson interrupted, pulling out his phone. I'm calling the police. I witnessed everything from blocking medical access to delaying critical care. Greg's face went pale. You can't prove anything. This is all a setup to force us into debt. Actually, Kate interjected, holding up her phone, I can prove everything, from when you hid the car keys to when you blocked the paramedics. It's all recorded. 2 police officers entered the ER as the medical team prepped me for surgery. Mr. Watson, Mrs. Watson, one officer said sternly, we need to ask you some questions about deliberately preventing medical care for a critical patient. This is harassment, Barbara shrieked. My Greg was protecting his family from medical debt. The last thing I heard before being wheeled into surgery was Kate telling the officers, I have recordings of everything. Every single thing. 2 weeks after my surgery, the truth about Greg and Barbara came crashing down like a house of cards. The hospital social worker, Miss Martinez, had been quietly building a case, documenting everything from the night I was admitted. This isn't their first time, she told Mom, spreading a series of files across her desk. We've identified 3 other families in the area. Same pattern. Greg marries a vulnerable single parent, then denies medical care to the children, always citing financial reasons. Mom sat frozen, her hands shaking as she sifted through insurance documents. He canceled our health insurance 4 months ago, she whispered. He said the premiums went up, but really, her voice broke. Miss Martinez nodded grimly. He pocketed the premium money. But that's not all. That's when we discovered Greg's secret savings account. While I lay in agony on the bathroom floor, listening to him rant about ambulance costs, he had over $50,000 stashed away. Money he'd hoarded by denying us basic necessities, canceling insurance, and imposing his cruel penny-pinching regime. I want a divorce, Mom announced, her voice steady and stronger than I'd heard in years. And I'm pressing charges. The police investigation moved swiftly. Other victims came forward, previous stepchildren who'd suffered at Greg's hands. One girl had nearly lost her leg to an untreated infection. A boy had permanent damage from a delayed appendix surgery eerily similar to what Greg tried to do to me. Barbara's shrieking about ungrateful families at the courthouse did nothing to help their case. Greg's attempts to justify his actions as teaching financial responsibility fell flat, especially when Kate's recordings, Mrs. Peterson's videos, and witness testimonies painted a damning picture. The community rallied around us. Mr. Thompson organized a fundraiser to help cover my medical bills. Neighbors who had witnessed everything that night gave their statements to investigators. The evidence was overwhelming. The judge's verdict was swift. Greg was convicted of criminal endangerment and insurance fraud. Barbara, charged as an accomplice, faced penalties for actively preventing medical care and enabling Greg's abuse. Both were ordered to pay restitution. In my years on the bench, the judge declared, I've rarely seen such calculated cruelty disguised as financial prudence. Greg's precious savings were drained to compensate his victims, leaving him and Barbara penniless. Their reputations were shattered. Barbara's endless social media rants about being persecuted only backfired as former victims flooded the comments with their own stories. Today, our home feels light again. Mom's smile has returned, and the house is warm, well-lit, and full of life. Kate visits often, bringing takeout and laughter. Mr. Thompson even hired Mom to manage tenant relations, saying she had a sharp eye for spotting red flags. As for me, I'm healing well. The community has grown closer and more vigilant, ensuring no one else falls prey to people like Greg and Barbara. And Greg and Barbara. Last we heard, they're living in a cheap motel, still preaching about financial responsibility to anyone who will listen. But no one's buying their act anymore. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting free. And that's exactly what we did. Discussion. Do enablers deserve harsher punishment? Barbara's role in this story raises an important question. Are enablers as culpable, or perhaps more dangerous, than the abusers they defend? By normalizing Greg's actions and actively supporting his cruelty, Barbara perpetuated harm and silenced those who might have spoken out sooner. While Greg was the architect of the abuse, Barbara played a vital role in ensuring his behavior seemed normal to the family and others. This normalization can make abuse harder to recognize and resist, potentially leading to greater and more prolonged harm. What do you think? Should enablers face harsher punishment than the abusers themselves? Or does their accountability depend on the extent of their complicity? Hi everyone, I'm Amanda, a 29-year-old marketing executive living in Chicago. Trust me, the wedding drama is just the beginning of my family's theatrics. You're just like your mother, always needing to do things your own way. Grandma Eleanor snapped, her words laced with her signature disapproval. It's a refrain I've heard my entire life. Grandma has been my guardian since I lost my parents in a car accident when I was 8, and while I'm grateful to her, she's turned every family gathering into her personal theater of control. Have you thought about joining the Ladies' Society? She pressed during our weekly family dinner. Rebecca's already on the board, and she's younger than you. I'm focused on my career right now, Grandma, I replied, keeping my tone even. Career? She scoffed. In my day, family came first. Your cousin Rebecca understands that. Perfect Rebecca, sitting smugly across the table, offered a polite smile. The society's hosting a charity gala next month. You should come, Amanda. Maybe bring Marcus. Marcus, my fiancé, gave my hand a reassuring squeeze under the table. We'd only announced our engagement last month, and already Grandma was trying to orchestrate every detail. Speaking of details, Aunt Patricia, Grandma's ever-loyal shadow, piped up. Have you set a date yet? The country club books up quickly, and Eleanor's been a member for 40 years. Actually, I started. We're thinking of having it at the modern downtown. Grandma's teacup clattered against its saucer. The modern? She repeated, aghast. No granddaughter of mine is getting married in some trendy venue. We've had every family wedding at the club since 1952. Uncle David peeked up from his newspaper, the only voice of reason. Eleanor, maybe let them. David, stay out of this. Grandma snapped before turning back to me. Amanda, dear, you know your mother would have wanted. Don't, I cut her off sharply. Don't bring Mom into this. You don't know what she would have wanted. Grandma's eyes narrowed. I raised you after she died. I think I know what's best for this family. Your mother respected tradition, unlike you. Rebecca, ever the golden child, leaned forward. Grandma's right. The club is beautiful in spring. Remember my debutante ball? Oh, how could I forget? I deadpanned. You only mention it at every single family gathering. Amanda. Aunt Patricia gasped. Show some respect. Marcus stood, sensing the storm brewing. Maybe we should leave. Sit down, young man, Grandma commanded before turning her attention back to me. Amanda, we need to discuss the guest list. I've already drafted it minus 300 of our closest family and friends. 300? I nearly choked. Grandma, we want a small wedding. Small? What will people think? She scoffed. No, I've already spoken to Reverend Matthews. He's holding the first Saturday in May for you. You did what? My voice rose as I pushed back my chair. This is exactly why I didn't want to have dinner tonight. You always do this, make decisions about my life without asking me. I'm trying to give you the wedding you deserve, she said, her tone icy. No, I said firmly. You're trying to control everything, just like always. Marcus, let's go. In the car, Marcus held my trembling hands. You okay? He asked softly. No, I whispered, swallowing back tears. But I will be. I'm done letting her control me. The next morning, I received an email from the bridal shop. My appointment had been modified to include a vintage fitting. Confused, I rushed to the boutique, only to find Grandma Eleanor already there, clutching a yellowed garment bag. Surprise, darling, she beamed. I brought my wedding dress. 5 generations of brides in our family have worn this. No, I said, my voice firm. I've already chosen my dress. That modern monstrosity, she spat. It has no soul, no history. She unzipped the bag to reveal a deteriorating lace gown. This is what a proper bride wears, Amanda. Be reasonable. As if on cue, Aunt Patricia appeared from behind a rack. Your grandmother's put so much thought into this. Of course, Grandma brought back up. Did you ambush my appointment on purpose? I asked, incredulous. We're here to help. Rebecca waltzed into the boutique wearing her practiced smile. I wore Grandma's veil at my wedding, she said sweetly. Remember how beautiful it was. Your wedding was your choice, I snapped. This is mine. Before I could say more, Marcus walked in, stopping short at the chaotic scene. Everything okay, Val? No, everything is not okay, I said, my voice trembling with anger. They hijacked my fitting. Young man, Grandma Eleanor interjected, her tone sharp. Surely you understand the importance of family traditions. Marcus squared his shoulders. I understand it's Amanda's choice. Choice? Grandma huffed. I've already spoken to Reverend Matthews about the ceremony. I made some necessary changes to those ridiculous modern vows. What changes? I asked, my head spinning. I replaced them with traditional ones, Grandma announced triumphantly. And I've taken care of that. Female efficient. She's gone. You what? Marcus stepped forward, his voice firm. You can't just do that. I most certainly can, Grandma shot back. I'm paying for this wedding. No, you're not, I exploded. We never asked for your money. We're paying for everything ourselves. Her face darkened. Then you'll regret it. No financial support. No club membership. Nothing. Grandma. Rebecca tried to interject, but I cut her off. Don't, I said, my voice trembling with suppressed rage. Don't use my dead mother against me again. The boutique fell silent as the weight of my words hung in the air. I found the canceled appointments, the changed vendor contracts, everything. You've been sabotaging my wedding. I've been fixing everything, Grandma shot back. You're too young to understand. I'm 29, I said, my voice steady. I run marketing campaigns worth millions. I'm not a child, and you don't control me. Amanda, please, Aunt Patricia pleaded, reaching for my arm. Your grandmother knows best. No, she doesn't, I said firmly, pulling away. And you're just as bad, always enabling her. Rebecca, too, always playing along, making everyone else look bad for having boundaries. That's enough, Grandma said, her voice trembling with fury. If you don't wear this dress, if you don't follow tradition, then what? Then disown me, I said, meeting her glare. Go ahead. I'd rather have no family than one that doesn't respect me. Marcus took my hand. Let's go, Val. In the car, tears streamed down my face. She's been calling all our vendors, changing things behind my back, I whispered. She even tried to cancel our venue. We'll fix it, Marcus said gently. Together. No more trying to please her. No more guilt. The wedding day arrived, and as Lisa, my best friend, adjusted my veil, the bridal suite door burst open. Grandma stormed in, clutching her yellowed dress bag, followed by a parade of elderly relatives I barely recognized. This ends now, she declared. Margaret, show her the photos. Every woman in this family has worn this dress. Get out, I said firmly. Lisa stepped between us, her hands on her hips. You ungrateful child. Grandma spat. Your mother would never. Enough. Aunt Patricia stepped forward, her voice trembling but resolute. Sarah hated these traditions. Remember how you forced her to cancel her beach wedding? Patricia, hold your tongue. Grandma snapped. No, I've held it too long, Aunt Patricia said. You did the same to my sister, and now she won't even speak to us. Guests began gathering at the door as Grandma raised her voice, deliberately loud. Amanda is destroying our family legacy. This modern ceremony is a disgrace. The only disgrace, Uncle David's voice cut through the commotion, is how you're acting, Mother. David, stay out of this, Grandma shouted. No, he said firmly, you drove half our family away with your control. Sarah wanted something different for Amanda. You don't know what Sarah wanted, Grandma hissed. Yes, I do, he said, pulling out an envelope. She left a letter for Amanda. I've kept it since the accident, waiting for the right time. What letter? I asked, my hands trembling. Don't you dare, Grandma warned, lunging for it. But Uncle David handed it to me. I opened it with shaking hands and began to read aloud. Amanda, I read, tears streaming down my face. Don't let anyone force you into their mold, especially not my mother. Live your life, my wayward little star. This is ridiculous, Grandma barked. Rebecca, tell them. But Rebecca's perfect facade finally cracked. Like how you convinced me to break up with James because he wasn't from the right family? Or how you pushed me into that awful society marriage. I hate my life, Grandma. You didn't give me everything. You took everything. The wedding coordinator appeared in the doorway. We need to start. This wedding is not happening, Grandma shrieked, grabbing my arm. Security, Lisa shouted. 2 guards appeared, gently but firmly escorting Grandma out as she screamed, You're ruining everything. No, Grandma, I said, my voice calm and steady. You ruined everything by never letting anyone live their own life. If you do this, you're no granddaughter of mine, she spat as she was led away. I haven't been for a long time, I whispered. Uncle David hugged me. Your mom would be so proud. The ceremony was perfect, exactly as Marcus and I had planned. Afterward, at a small reception hosted by Aunt Patricia, she smiled warmly. Amanda, Sarah's coming next week. My daughter is finally speaking to me again. That's wonderful. How long has it been? 10 years. Aunt Patricia sighed, her voice tinged with regret. All because I let your grandmother convince me Sarah's lifestyle was inappropriate. She's a successful artist in New York now, Uncle David added. Mother's not taking it well. The church committee asked her to step down after Mrs. Peterson revealed how she blackmailed her daughter out of art school. Did you hear about Rebecca? Aunt Patricia leaned in, a conspiratorial smile on her face. She ran off with her old boyfriend James, left a note for her society husband and everything. Good for her, I said, smiling at the memory of James from high school. They're in California, Aunt Patricia continued. She's finally pursuing her dance career. Says she feels alive for the first time in years. The doorbell rang, cutting through the conversation. Marcus answered, returning moments later with a tense expression. Val, it's your grandmother's friend, Mrs. Harrison. Mrs. Harrison. I raised an eyebrow as the older woman hesitated in the doorway, wringing her hands. Amanda, dear, she began, her voice trembling. The Ladies' Society held a vote. Eleanor's membership, we had to terminate it. After what came out about her threatening the rector's wife. I'm not getting involved, I said firmly, folding my arms. She's all alone now, Mrs. Harrison continued, almost pleading. The Bridge Club, the Garden Society, everyone's heard the stories. Maybe if you spoke to her. No, my voice was resolute. She made her choices. After she left, Marcus wrapped his arms around me. You okay? Actually, yes, I replied, surprising myself with the truth. The family's healing without our control. Sarah and Patricia are reconnecting. Rebecca's free. Uncle David's finally speaking up. My phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. Starting dance classes tomorrow. James says hi, miss you all. She's still sitting alone in that big house. Aunt Patricia mentioned softly, refusing to acknowledge any wrongdoing. That's her choice, I said simply, just like this is ours. Uncle David raised his glass, his smile warm. To Amanda and Marcus for showing us it's never too late to break free. To freedom. Everyone echoed, their voices bright with hope. Outside, autumn leaves swirled past the window, painting a world in shades of gold and crimson. Somewhere across town, I knew Grandma Eleanor sat alone in her formal dining room, surrounded by traditions but no family. Her bridge club meetings canceled, her social calendar empty, her control finally gone. But here, in my home filled with love and laughter, I was exactly where I wanted to be. No guilt, no manipulation, no toxic traditions, just family, the way it should be. Marcus squeezed my hand, and I smiled. Sometimes the best family isn't the one you're born into. It's the one you choose to build. What would you do if you discovered that your most cherished family member was manipulating multiple lives behind the scenes? Would you stay silent to keep the peace, or would you be the one to break the cycle of generational trauma, even if it meant losing your support system? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had to choose between family traditions and your own happiness? How did it turn out? If you enjoyed Amanda's journey of breaking free from toxic control and creating a healthier family dynamic, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more real stories of empowerment and resilience. My name is Lisa, and I'm a 24-year-old woman living in Austin, Texas. Life hasn't exactly turned out the way I imagined, but it's taught me some hard lessons about family, love, and the value of standing up for yourself. I married my husband, Cody, 3 years ago. Back then, I believed he was my partner in everything, a man who loved me for who I was and would always have my back. But from the moment I stepped into his family home, things changed. My mother-in-law, Karen, made it her mission to remind me I didn't belong. She would smile and pretend to adore me when Cody was around. But the moment we were alone, her mask would drop. Karen hated me, and she made no effort to hide it. The problem wasn't just that I married her son. It was that I earned more than him. I worked as a marketing analyst for a tech company, and my paycheck often covered more of our expenses than Cody's did. Karen couldn't stand that. In her eyes, it was my job to cater to my husband and his family, no matter what I brought to the table. She started treating me like a live-in maid. "You're home early. Why don't you clean the kitchen?" She'd say, or, "Cody works so hard. Shouldn't you handle the laundry?" It wasn't about chores. It was about control. I cooked dinner for everyone after a long day at work, only for Karen to criticize it. I'd scrub the floors, and she'd find something I missed. Cody would tell me to ignore her, but he never stood up for me. The worst part was the double-faced act. Around Cody, Karen would sing my praises. "Lisa's so hardworking," she'd gush. "You're lucky to have her." But when he wasn't there, she'd call me names, roll her eyes at me, or even guilt me into running errands for her. Despite all this, I kept telling myself to push through. This is marriage, I thought. It'll get better. But the truth was, I was bending over backward for a family that didn't appreciate me, and every day, it wore me down a little more. It all came to a head on my 25th birthday, a day I had hoped would be filled with joy and love. I'd worked so hard to make that house feel like a home, to be a good wife, and to endure Karen's constant jabs. Deep down, I wanted that day to remind me why I'd chosen this life. To celebrate with my husband and maybe, just maybe, feel like I belonged. I decided to keep the celebration small, just the three of us. Cody, Karen, and me. I planned everything from the decorations to the cake, and even set up Karen's favorite chair at the table. I wanted to prove to her that I wasn't trying to replace her in Cody's life, that we could all coexist peacefully. The evening started off smoothly. Karen even complimented my outfit, which was rare. I thought maybe, for once, we'd have a nice moment as a family. When it came time to cut the cake, I hesitated for a second. Karen was sitting right there, scrolling on her phone, and Cody was distracted with a work email. I didn't want to seem selfish, so I asked, "Should we wait for you to finish, Karen?" She waved me off. "Go ahead, Lisa." "Don't wait on me," she said without looking up. So I picked up the knife, smiled at Cody, and made the first slice. The next few seconds are a blur in my memory. One moment, I was cutting the cake. The next, Karen was on her feet shouting, "How dare you cut the cake without asking me?" She screamed, her voice sharp enough to make Cody jump. I was stunned. She just told me to go ahead. I opened my mouth to respond, but before I could say a word, she slapped me across the face. The sting of her hand on my cheek wasn't just physical, it was humiliating. And as if that wasn't enough, she grabbed a handful of the cake I'd spent hours decorating and threw it at me. The room fell silent. I stood there, my cheek burning, frosting sliding down my face, completely shocked. I turned to Cody, my husband, the man who was supposed to love and protect me. "Cody," I said, my voice trembling, "are you seriously going to let her do this to me?" I hoped, prayed, that he'd stand up for me, that he'd tell Karen she was out of line. But instead, he sighed, ran his hand through his hair, and said, "Lisa, why do you always have to start drama?" It was like the air had been sucked out of the room. "Drama?" I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. "Don't raise your voice at me," he snapped. "You know how sensitive my mom is. You could have waited for her." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Karen was standing there, glaring at me with smug satisfaction, and Cody, the one person I thought I could count on, was taking her side. I didn't argue. What was the point? My birthday, the one day that was supposed to be about me, had turned into another stage for Karen to humiliate me. And Cody, as always, let her. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the scene over and over in my head. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't cry. I couldn't even be angry. All I felt was a deep, hollow sadness. By the time the sun came up, I knew what I had to do. This wasn't just about the cake or the slap. It was about the years of disrespect, the endless sacrifices, and the realization that neither Karen nor Cody would ever change. The next morning, I packed my things. I didn't make a scene. I didn't yell or demand explanations. I just left. I didn't even leave a note. For the first time in years, I chose myself. Leaving wasn't easy. For weeks after I walked out, I kept waiting for Cody to come after me, to call and apologize, to tell me he'd made a mistake. But all I got was silence. The first few days were the hardest. I rented a small apartment downtown and started piecing my life back together. The emptiness in that space mirrored the void I felt inside. But as the days turned into weeks, something strange happened. I started to feel lighter. Without Karen's constant criticism and Cody's indifference weighing me down, I could finally breathe. I threw myself into my work, took up yoga, and even joined a local book club. For the first time in years, I was living for myself, not for someone else. 3 years passed, and I became someone I barely recognized, stronger, happier, and more confident. My career soared. I made friends who felt more like family than Karen or Cody ever did. I stopped thinking about them altogether. That is, until one evening when my phone rang. The name on the screen stopped me in my tracks. Cody. I hesitated before answering, a flood of emotions rushing in. What could he possibly want after all this time? "Liza." His voice cracked as soon as I picked up. "I need you." It wasn't the confident, dismissive tone I remembered. He sounded desperate, almost broken. "Mom's gone," he continued, barely able to get the words out. "She passed away last week. I don't know what to do. The house is falling apart. I'm falling apart. I've lost everything, Lisa. I need you. Please come back." I was stunned. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. His words swirled in my mind. I need you. The same man who stood by as his mother humiliated me, who dismissed my pain, now wanted me to swoop in and save him. "Liza," he pleaded when I didn't respond. "I've changed. I realize now how much I hurt you, how wrong I was to let Mom treat you that way. I miss you, baby. Please, come home. We can start over. We can build a new life together." I took a deep breath, the weight of his words pressing against my chest. But then, I remembered. I remembered Karen's slap, the frosting sliding down my face, Cody's cold indifference, and the years I spent breaking my back for a family that never respected me. "No," I said firmly, my voice steady. "What?" he stammered, as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. "No, Cody," I repeated. "I'm not coming back. I'm not your savior. I'm not your maid. And I'm definitely not the woman who's going to fix your life because you let it fall apart. Liza, please." Do you remember the day you humiliated me on my birthday? When you sided with your mother instead of defending me, you made your choice, Cody. And now I'm making mine. There was a long pause. I could hear him breathing, could feel the weight of his silence. I spent 3 years rebuilding my life, I continued. 3 years learning to love myself after everything you and your mother put me through. And I'm not going to throw all that away just because you suddenly realize what you lost. But I've changed, he whispered. Maybe you have, I said. But it doesn't matter. I don't need you anymore, Cody. I've moved on, and you should too. For the first time in years, I felt completely free. This wasn't about revenge or holding a grudge. It was about choosing myself, something I should have done a long time ago. When I hung up the phone, I didn't feel regret or sadness. I felt relief. Cody's problems weren't mine anymore, and I was finally free to live the life I deserved. After that phone call, I felt a sense of clarity I hadn't known before. It wasn't just about turning Cody down. It was about fully stepping into the life I had built for myself. For years, I had defined my worth by what I could do for others, by how much I could endure. But now, I saw my strength in a different light, not as someone who tolerated pain, but as someone who chose happiness. The life I had rebuilt was beautiful in ways I never expected. My small apartment had grown into a cozy sanctuary filled with things that brought me joy. My job, once a means to escape the chaos at home, had blossomed into a career I loved. I'd started traveling, something I'd always dreamed of but never had the freedom to do. More importantly, I'd surrounded myself with people who truly cared about me. My book club turned into a circle of close friends who celebrated my wins and held me up when I faltered. They were there for the little moments too, movie nights, weekend brunches, and even an impromptu road trip to the Grand Canyon. On my 28th birthday, 3 years after the disaster that drove me to leave, I threw a party for myself. Not out of obligation, not to please anyone else, but simply because I wanted to celebrate me. My friends decorated my home with fairy lights and flowers, and we danced in the living room to my favorite songs. When it was time to cut the cake, everyone cheered, and for the first time in years, I felt nothing but joy. Standing there, knife in hand, I thought back to that moment 3 years ago when Karen slapped me and Cody stood by. It wasn't sadness I felt, it was gratitude. Because if that night hadn't happened, I might never have found the courage to walk away. My life now wasn't perfect, but it was mine. I learned to trust myself, to set boundaries, and to let go of people who didn't deserve a place in my heart. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for someone else to save me. As I looked around the room, at the friends who had become my family, at the life I had built from the ground up, I realized something. I didn't need Cody. I didn't need Karen. I didn't need anyone to complete me because I was already whole. And that was the greatest gift of all. Hi, I'm Laura. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. But when you're 8 months pregnant with your first baby, it's easy to get caught up in the excitement and miss the red flags waving right in front of you. My husband, Marcus, and I had been over the moon when we found out I was pregnant. After 2 years of trying, those 2 pink lines felt like a miracle. Marcus's father, Richard, seemed particularly thrilled. He lived just 10 minutes away in our small town and immediately started dropping by more often. You need someone to keep an eye on you, he'd say, showing up unannounced with groceries or handyman tools. Marcus works such long hours at the hospital, and I'm retired. What else am I going to do? At first, his attention seemed sweet. He fixed squeaky doors, installed baby-proof locks, and even repainted the nursery. But then the comments started. You shouldn't be eating that in your condition, he'd say, snatching food off my plate. Are you sure you should be working? In my day, pregnant women stayed home. This despite my doctor encouraging me to continue remote work as long as I felt comfortable. Marcus says you've been complaining about back pain, he'd add. You're probably not getting enough exercise. When I tried to stand up for myself, Richard would laugh it off. Oh, pregnancy hormones. You're so sensitive these days. Marcus always intervened when I told him about these incidents, but Richard brushed it off as jokes or concern. Dad means well, Marcus would say. He's just old school. Then came the emergency. With just 2 weeks until my due date, Marcus was called to assist with a critical surgery at another hospital 4 hours away. It was a 3-day assignment. I don't want to leave you, he fretted, pacing the bedroom while packing. What if you go into labor early? I'll be fine, I'd assured him, though my heart was racing. Your dad's just down the road, remember. When Marcus called his father to ask him to be on standby, Richard's voice boomed through the speakerphone. Of course. Don't worry about a thing, son. Laura and the baby are in good hands. That evening, as Marcus's car disappeared down the driveway, I noticed Richard standing in his front yard across the street, waving goodbye. He caught my eye and smiled, but something about that smile made my skin crawl. And that's how I ended up experiencing the most terrifying night of my life. The contractions started at midnight. At first I told myself they were just Braxton Hicks. But by 2 a.m., I knew this was the real thing. They were coming every 7 minutes. Richard, it's Laura. I said, my voice shaking as I made the first call. I think I'm in labor. What? It's the middle of the night. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. The contractions are getting stronger. I need to go to the hospital. Give it another hour. First-time mothers always panic. I'll come check on you then. An hour later, I was on my hands and knees, breathing through contractions that were now 5 minutes apart. I called again. Richard, please, I need to go now. All right, let me just finish something up. I'll be there soon. 3 more calls. 3 more promises. By 4 a.m., I was crying, hunched over the bathtub. The contractions were coming every 3 minutes, and I could barely speak through them. That's when I heard it, Richard's voice, clear as day through the open bathroom window. No, I'm not busy, he said, talking on the phone. Just enjoying my morning coffee, beautiful sunrise coming up. My blood turned to ice. He was just sitting there, watching the sunrise while I was in labor. Richard, I screamed through the window. I can hear you. Please help me. The footsteps on his deck stopped. A door slammed shut. The next 2 hours blurred together, contractions that felt like they were tearing me apart, crawling from room to room in agony, desperate for relief. I called 911, only to be told all ambulances were responding to a major highway pileup. At 6:30 a.m., the overwhelming urge to push hit me. Alone, terrified, and on my bathroom floor when I heard someone pounding on my front door. I thought I was imagining it. Laura, are you okay? I heard screaming. It was Julie, my next-door neighbor, just about to head out for her morning run. Help! I'm in labor. I managed to cry out. Julie sprang into action. With quick thinking and a frantic call to her sister, who was a nurse, she helped me deliver my daughter right there on my bathroom floor. A perfect, screaming 7-pound, 6-ounce baby girl. As Julie wrapped the baby in clean towels, I could still hear movement from Richard's house. The unmistakable sound of his car starting and the garage door opening. Looks like your father-in-law's heading out for the day, Julie muttered, her voice tight with anger. Funny though, I could have sworn I saw him on his deck hours ago when I was letting my dog out. I looked down at my daughter's face, then back at Julie. Julie, could you check your security cameras from last night? I need to know exactly when he was outside. Her expression hardened. Oh honey, I'll do better than that. I'll download every second of footage from the past 12 hours. Something tells me Marcus needs to see this. Even as my body shook from exhaustion and pain, my mind was clear. Richard had no idea, but he just made the biggest mistake of his life. The next 2 days in the hospital were grueling. Complications from the unassisted delivery, a fever from infection, stitches for tears, and blood pressure that refused to stabilize, left me feeling battered. But through it all, I clutched my phone, waiting for Marcus to return my calls. When he finally burst into my hospital room, his face was ghost white. Dad said he didn't know, Marcus stammered. He swears he was sleeping with earplugs and didn't hear his phone. Baby, I'm so sorry. He's lying. Julie stepped forward from the corner, where she'd been waiting quietly. She pulled out her tablet and set it on the table. I have proof. The security footage was crystal clear. Richard standing on his deck at 4:00 a.m., sipping coffee. The timestamp matched my call history perfectly. Then came the audio, my screams for help cutting through the silence, followed by the sound of Richard retreating indoors. Marcus gripped the hospital bed rail so hard his knuckles turned white. There's more, he said grimly. When I called him from the road, he said he checked on you at 7:00 a.m. and that you were sleeping peacefully. He claimed you must have had the baby right after that. I have footage of that too, Julie said. His car leaving at 7:15. He never came to check. He just left. That's when my sister Sarah burst into the room, her face flushed with anger. "You won't believe what this bastard posted on Facebook during all this," she exclaimed, holding up her phone. At 4:37 a.m., Richard had written, "Nothing better than a peaceful morning watching the sunrise. Some people just don't appreciate the quiet moments in life." Then, at 6:15 a.m., "Young people these days are so dramatic about everything. Back in my day, we handled things without all the fuss." Marcus staggered into a chair, his head in his hands. "I don't understand. Why would he?" "Because he's always been like this." The voice came from the doorway. It was Linda, Marcus's aunt, her eyes brimming with tears. "When your mother was dying, he did the same thing. Ignored her calls for help, said she was exaggerating. She crawled to a neighbor's house during her final stroke. He didn't lift a finger to help." Stories came pouring out. Cousins Richard had abandoned in emergencies, neighbors he promised to assist during disasters, but conveniently disappeared on. A lifetime of casual cruelty, all hidden behind excuses and dismissive jokes. Linda's voice was soft but resolute. This time, he went too far. Marcus stood, his face set like stone. "Julie, can you send me all that footage?" "Sarah, screenshot every one of those posts. Mom's side of the family deserves to know the truth too." I watched my husband transform in that moment. The confused son was gone. In his place stood a protective father, determined to shield his family from a man who had nearly cost us everything. "He could have killed you both," Marcus whispered, holding our daughter's tiny hand. "He won't get away with it this time. I promise." And he was right. While I recovered in the hospital, Julie wasn't the only one gathering evidence. Richard's reckoning was just beginning. The charges caught Richard completely off guard. He was serving coffee after Sunday service when the papers were delivered in front of the entire congregation. Endangerment of a vulnerable adult in medical distress. Under state law, my pregnancy and the circumstances of the labor made me eligible for protection. "This is ridiculous. She's making it all up," Richard's voice echoed through the church hall. But Pastor Mike stepped forward, holding a tablet. "We've seen the evidence, Richard, the security footage, your social media posts, the phone records. I wasn't there, but Sarah recorded everything." She captured the moment. Richard's face crumpled as Pastor Mike played Julie's security footage on the church's big screen. The congregation gasped as my screams echoed through the speakers, the timestamp glaring alongside footage of Richard calmly retreating inside. "I've removed you from the church council," Pastor Mike said quietly, "and from the community outreach program. That was only the beginning." Marcus shared everything with his mother's side of the family, the aunts, uncles, and cousins who had drifted apart over the years. What followed was a deluge of shared stories, each revealing Richard's long-standing pattern of cruelty. Within a month, his carefully constructed image of the reliable family patriarch crumbled. No more family dinners. No more leadership roles in the community. Even his country club friends stopped calling after Linda, his wife of 40 years, finally spoke up. "He locked me out of the house during a tornado warning last year," she told her bridge club, "said I was overreacting to the sirens. I sat in my car watching the sky turn green while he watched TV inside." Linda moved out the next day and filed for divorce a week later. The legal consequences were almost anticlimactic by comparison. Richard took a plea deal. Probation, mandatory counseling, and a restraining order keeping him away from me and my daughter. But his real punishment was the solitude. Last week, I saw him through my kitchen window, shuffling down his driveway to get his mail. His shoulders were hunched, his gait slow. The big house that once bustled with family gatherings now sat dark and silent. Meanwhile, our home is alive with laughter and love. Marcus has become the most protective and attentive father I could imagine. Julie is now one of my closest friends and an honorary aunt to my daughter. Linda moved in with her sister and rediscovered painting, something Richard had always belittled. Just last week, we celebrated my daughter's 6-month birthday with a big backyard party. Family, friends, and neighbors filled the yard, their laughter mingling with the scent of barbecue and the glow of string lights. Through the fence, I noticed Richard standing at his window, watching. For a long time, he just stood there, observing the life he could have been part of, if only he'd shown the slightest bit of decency. Some people tell me I should forgive him, that he's suffered enough. But when I think back to those terrifying hours alone, when I remember how he risked my baby's life, I feel no guilt about his isolation. He made his choices. Now he can live with them. Oh, and that security system Julie had. We've upgraded ours. Just in case someone else ever needs to learn the hard way that actions have consequences. What would you do if an in-law deliberately ignored your desperate calls during a life-threatening emergency, only to later lie and dismiss your fear as dramatic? Would you press charges like Laura did, or handle it differently? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective matters, and I'd love to hear how you'd navigate such a devastating betrayal. Hi everyone, I'm Emma, a 28-year-old nurse at Memorial Hospital, and I've got a story that's straight out of a drama series. It's about my mother-in-law, Jennifer, and how she tried to take over my life. It all started 2 years ago when I met Brian at a friend's barbecue. He was charming, kind, and we hit it off instantly. After a whirlwind romance, we tied the knot in a beautiful ceremony. That's when I first noticed something odd about Jennifer. At the time, I chalked it up to wedding stress. "You're part of our close-knit family now," she said at our first dinner after the honeymoon. "I'll guide you through everything." I didn't realize that her guidance was code for control. Things escalated after I got pregnant with our daughter, Esla. Jennifer's true colors came out. She started showing up unannounced, saying things like, "A first-time mother needs her family close by." She'd barge into our home, take over tasks without asking, and constantly instruct Brian. "Make sure Emma doesn't lift anything heavy. In fact, I'll come by every day to help." My best friend Julia, who works with me at the hospital, was the first to notice something was off. During one of Jennifer's surprise visits, she whispered, "Girl, is she always like this?" as Jennifer reorganized my kitchen cabinets without so much as a word to me. "She means well," I said, though I was starting to feel uneasy. After Isla was born, things went from bad to worse. Jennifer criticized everything: how I held the baby, how I fed her, even how I dressed her. "The baby needs another layer, Emma." Really, in my day, we knew how to care for infants properly. My parents, Sonia and Alexander, lived 2 hours away and tried to support me from afar. "Sweetheart," my mom reassured me during one of our calls, "you're doing a wonderful job with Isla. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." But Brian, he didn't see the problem. "Mom's just trying to help, babe. She raised me just fine, didn't she?" he'd say whenever I brought it up. "That's not the point," I argued. "I feel like she's taking over our lives." Jennifer even started telling neighbors she was practically raising Isla because I worked full-time. Such a shame. I overheard her telling Mrs. Parker next door. "Mothers these days choose work over their babies. Thank goodness I'm here to step in." Julia became my rock during those early months. "Document everything," she advised. "Every criticism, every unannounced visit, every time she undermines you. Trust me, you'll need this later." At the time, I didn't understand why she was so insistent, but I followed her advice. Then came the day that changed everything. Asla was 3 months old, and I had just finished feeding her when Jennifer barged through the front door without knocking. Why isn't she in the outfit I bought her? And honestly, Emma, breastfeeding again. I brought formula. It's so much better for tracking how much she eats. I was too stunned to respond. This became a pattern. She showed up daily, sometimes multiple times, and even inserted herself into Isla's first pediatrician appointment. While Dr. Thompson and I reviewed Isla's growth chart, Jennifer burst into the exam room. "I simply had to be here," she announced. "A grandmother has every right to know about her grandbaby's health. Now, doctor, I've noticed some concerning things about how she's being fed." "Ma'am," Dr. Thompson interrupted, "I'll need you to wait outside. This is a private appointment." That night, Brian and I had our biggest fight yet. "Your mother completely undermined me at the doctor's office," I said. "She's just concerned about Isla. Why are you always so defensive?" He shot back. "Defensive? Brian, she's telling everyone I'm an unfit mother. Mrs. Parker asked me if I leave Isla crying for hours while I chat on the phone." Things took an even darker turn when Julia came over one afternoon. While Jennifer was watching Isla, we noticed my bedroom drawers slightly open and my diary sitting out on the shelf, crinkled, as though it had been read. "She's going through my personal things," I whispered, horrified. Jennifer's interference didn't stop there. Parenting books I purchased disappeared, replaced by outdated ones she brought over. And then I discovered a spare key on Brian's carrying. "Oh, Mom asked for a spare key for emergencies," Brian explained casually. "It makes sense, right?" "You gave her a key to our house without asking me?" I demanded. Don't start, Emma. She's family. Julia sat with me one evening, going over the log I'd been keeping. Look at this pattern, she said. The unannounced visits, the rumors, the snooping. She's trying to control your entire life. It all clicked when I found messages on Brian's phone. Jennifer had been texting him, painting me as unstable. Your wife seems overwhelmed, honey. Maybe she needs professional help. I worried about my grandbaby. That was Jennifer's mantra, and every day brought new battles. One day, I came home from work to find she'd rearranged Isla's nursery, claiming the original layout was dangerous. Another time, she scheduled a photographer for Isla's 3-month pictures without consulting me, then called me difficult when I said I couldn't attend. I've never seen such disrespect for family traditions, she declared to our church group. In my day, young mothers appreciated help instead of being so stubborn. The final straw came when I caught her rifling through our financial documents. She was supposed to be watching Isla. Just trying to help organize things, dear, she said with a sweet smile. You seem so overwhelmed. That was it. I knew something had to change. But I had no idea how far Jennifer would go to maintain control. After 6 exhausting months, I planned a weekend trip to visit my parents with Isla. They haven't seen their granddaughter in weeks. We'll leave Friday after my shift, I told Brian. You're going to your parents? Well, I'll come too. Isla needs my supervision during the car ride, Jennifer announced. No, Jennifer, this is my time with my family. Your family? Her voice sharpened. I am your family. Brian, tell your wife she's being ridiculous. Brian shifted uncomfortably. Maybe Mom could come. Absolutely not. I'm taking my daughter to see my parents. Jennifer's face flushed red. If you take my grandbaby without proper supervision, I'll be forced to take action. You're clearly not thinking straight. Are you threatening me? I asked, my voice steady but firm. I'm protecting my granddaughter. I packed our bags anyway, and Friday afternoon, Isla and I hit the road. 20 minutes into the drive, my phone blew up with frantic messages from Brian. Mom's hysterical. She's saying you've kidnapped Isla. Come back now. Then my parents called. Emma, my dad said, his voice tight, the police are here. They're saying something about a kidnapping. When I arrived at my parents' house, I walked into the living room to find 2 officers standing awkwardly. Jennifer had told them I was mentally unstable and had taken Isla during a psychotic break. Here's Isla's birth certificate. Here's my marriage license, I said, holding them out with shaking hands. I'm her mother, taking her to visit her grandparents. The officers' expressions shifted as they realized what had happened. Ma'am, one of them said to me, making a false police report is a serious offense. Your mother-in-law could face charges. My mom was livid. That woman called the police on my daughter for visiting us. Alexander, call our lawyer. Minutes later, Brian stormed in, having driven 2 hours after Jennifer's meltdown. Where's Isla? Is she okay? He asked breathlessly. She's fine, I said, glaring at him. Sir, one officer interrupted. Your mother lied to the police. She could be charged with filing a false report. Brian's face crumpled as reality set in. During the chaos, Julia called. Emma, you need to know something, she said urgently. Remember Linda? Brian's ex? Jennifer did the same thing to her, called her workplace with false accusations, spread rumors, even called the police once, claiming Linda stole from her. I found her on Facebook. She's willing to make a statement. Brian overheard everything on speakerphone. His face went pale. There's more, Julia continued. 3 other women in your church group reached out to me. Jennifer's been doing this for years, controlling, manipulating, destroying relationships. They're all willing to come forward. The police left with a warning for Jennifer, and Brian collapsed onto my parents' couch, his head in his hands. I had no idea, he whispered. All these years, Mom's been. Now you know why I had to get away, I said. My phone buzzed again and again with Jennifer's desperate messages. She was telling everyone I'd had a breakdown and kidnapped Isla. But this time, her lies would cost her everything. No more playing nice. Brian said, looking up at me. That woman needs to face consequences. He was right. Looking at my sleeping daughter, I knew I had to act. With Julia's help, I compiled everything. Text messages, witness statements, photos, and a detailed log of incidents. My parents hired a top-notch attorney who specialized in family law. We got more than enough for a restraining order, the attorney confirmed. Jennifer's pattern of harassment is clear. At the courthouse, Jennifer's facade cracked. "You're really doing this to your own mother?" she shrieked at Brian in the hallway. "After everything I've sacrificed for you?" "No, Mom," Brian said firmly. "You did this. I've seen the evidence. The lies, the manipulation, what you did to Linda and everyone else. You crossed every line." The judge reviewed the evidence carefully. My documentation included statements from Linda and 3 other women Jennifer had terrorized over the years. "Your Honor," I began, my voice steady. She even enlisted her friend, Officer Tom, to perform unauthorized background checks on me and my family. She used that information to threaten and harass us. That revelation sparked an immediate internal affairs investigation. Officer Tom faced suspension and possible termination for misusing police resources at Jennifer's behest. The case took an unexpected turn when Samantha, Brian's sister-in-law, arrived to testify. Her voice shook as she shared her story. "She convinced my husband I was cheating and almost destroyed our marriage," Samantha said. "She hacked my social media, spread rumors at church. Jennifer does this to anyone she feels threatens her control." The judge didn't hesitate. The restraining order was granted. Jennifer was legally barred from contacting us or coming within 500 feet of Isla. Outside the courthouse, Jennifer glared at me, venom in her voice. "This is what you wanted all along, isn't it? To steal my son and destroy our family. You won't get away with this." "No, Jennifer," I replied calmly. "You did that all by yourself. Every lie, every manipulation, every toxic action, that was all you." Brian and I began intensive marriage counseling. During one particularly emotional session, he broke down completely. "I should have protected you and Isla," he said through tears. "I was so blind. She's manipulated me my whole life, and I let her do the same to you." "We're healing now," I said, holding his hand. "That's what matters. Isla will have a better future because of these changes." The truth about Jennifer spread through the community like wildfire. Her church friends stopped calling. Her bridge club discreetly removed her from their roster. Women she had tormented for years finally felt free to share their stories on social media and in local groups. I threw myself into my work, earning a promotion to head nurse. The hospital administration praised my leadership during crisis. "Emma," my supervisor said, "we'd like you to lead our new maternal care unit. Your experience and compassion make you perfect for this role." Meanwhile, Jennifer's life fell apart. She attempted desperate damage control, playing the victim on social media, but no one bought it. She lost her volunteer positions, her social circle, and the facade of respectability she had built over the years. One evening, as I looked at photos of Isla surrounded by genuine love and joy, I felt truly free. Jennifer's attempts to control and manipulate had failed spectacularly. She had lost everything: her son, her granddaughter, her reputation, and her social standing. My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "You'll regret this someday. No one can keep me from my family forever." I blocked the number without hesitation. Jennifer would never understand that she caused her own downfall. Meanwhile, Isla would grow up surrounded by healthy relationships and real love, never knowing the toxicity of her grandmother's manipulation. That, I realized, was the best revenge of all: living well and breaking the cycle of abuse. This story was a social experiment, and now I have some sensitive questions for you. When dealing with toxic in-laws, where do you draw the line between keeping the peace and protecting your child? Jennifer used the police and community against me, but some say I should have been more patient for the sake of family unity. Hi, everyone. I'm Julia, 33 years old, and this is the story of how I built my skincare empire from the ground up, only to face betrayal from the one person I trusted most. 8 years ago, my life was a blur of endless shifts. By day, I was a barista and a retail worker. By night, I bartended. Every spare dollar went into creating my first skincare product in my tiny apartment kitchen. "Girl, you're going to burn yourself out," Sarah would say during our stolen coffee breaks. She was my rock, my best friend since college. Now she's the CEO of my company. "Just wait, Sarah," I'd tell her. "This formula is different. People are tired of fake promises and harsh chemicals." I was right. My natural skincare line exploded after a major beauty influencer raved about it. Suddenly, I went from juggling jobs to running a business that was skyrocketing. Around that time, I met Mike at a business convention. Your passion for clean beauty is infectious, he said on our first date. You're not like other entrepreneurs. I fell hard. Fancy dinners, surprise weekend getaways. Mike seemed like everything I didn't know I needed. My brother James, who's also my lawyer, wasn't so convinced. As your brother and legal advisor, something feels off about him, James warned. You say that about everyone I date. I laughed it off, too caught up in the whirlwind romance to see the cracks forming. Within a year, Mike and I were married. His mother, Linda, made no secret of her disapproval, throwing snide comments my way at every family gathering. Then there was Tom, Mike's brother, always around and always asking for help. Come on, Julia, we're family now. I just need a small loan to tide me over, he'd say every week. You're enabling his gambling, I told Mike. He's family. We take care of family, he'd reply. When I found out I was pregnant, everything felt perfect for a while. My company hit the $1 million mark, and we were expanding into luxury skincare. Mike celebrated with me, but something had changed in his eyes. Baby, we need to secure our future, he started saying. Maybe I should have my name added to some of the business documents. Sarah noticed it too. Julia, he's been asking a lot of weird questions about supplier contracts, she said. He's just interested in the business, I insisted, rubbing my growing belly. Then, one night, I overheard him on the phone. Mom, don't worry. Once the baby comes, we'll have more leverage. Julia's hormonal now, but she'll see reason. This company is going to be our family's legacy. I froze. My world, which had seemed so perfect, suddenly felt like a house of cards. The cracks were turning into full-blown fractures. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. But when you're in love, you wear rose-colored glasses, and all the red flags just look like flags. You're never home anymore, Julia. This pregnancy isn't an excuse to neglect your husband, Mike snapped one evening as I worked on quarterly reports in my home office. His latest venture, a crypto platform, had just crashed, taking our joint savings with it. My company is expanding into Europe. I can't just drop everything because you're feeling neglected, I shot back. Your company? His tone had turned icy. I thought we were partners in this marriage. Linda didn't help. She'd show up unannounced whenever Mike was in one of his moves. Darling, she'd say, dripping with condescension, a wife's priority should be her family. All this business stress isn't good for the baby. Why not let Mike handle some of it? Then came the documents, power of attorney forms, company ownership transfers. All for the family's security, Mike said, sliding them across the table. Just sign here, babe. Don't you trust me? I'm your husband. I started noticing strange inconsistencies in our confidential files. Product formulas leaked and competitor launches that seemed suspiciously similar to our upcoming lines. Sarah, I called, my voice tight, run a system check. Someone's been accessing private folders. Already on it, she replied. Minutes later, she returned, her face pale. You won't like what I found. The login credentials, they're from Mike's computer. The confrontation happened in our kitchen. I was 7 months pregnant, holding undeniable proof of his betrayal. You're stealing from me, sharing trade secrets. I demanded. Don't be so dramatic, he shot back. I'm protecting our interests. You're the one being selfish, thinking only about yourself. Get out of my face, Mike. Or what? He sneered, stepping closer. You'll call your precious brother James. He can't protect you forever. He grabbed my arm hard. When I pulled away, he shoved me against the counter. I stumbled, barely catching myself. Oh my God, Julia. Sarah's voice rang out from the doorway, her phone discreetly recording. Stay out of this, Mike snarled, storming out. Later that night, Sarah shared what she discovered. He's drowning in debt, Julia. Gambling, failed investments, loans from sharks. He and Tom both. They've been bleeding money for months. The bank statements confirmed it. Hundreds of thousands of dollars gone. My successful husband was a fraud, desperate enough to hurt his pregnant wife. I wanted to tell you earlier, Sarah whispered, but he threatened to leak company secrets if I warned you. My phone buzzed. Linda was calling again. I let it ring, staring at the bruise forming on my arm. The baby kicked, sensing my distress. I've been such a fool, I murmured. No, Sarah said, gripping my hand. You've been manipulated by experts, but now we have proof. My hand rested on my belly, anger replacing fear. This wasn't just about me anymore. Remember the exit strategy we created when we started the company? I asked. Sarah nodded, realization dawning in her eyes. It's time, I said, my voice firm. No one threatens my baby's future. Not my husband, not his mother. No one. The mask had slipped, revealing the monster beneath. But he'd forgotten one thing. I didn't build an empire by being weak. 3:00 a.m. Sarah and I moved quickly through the house while Mike was on a business trip with Jessica from marketing, a betrayal I hadn't wanted to see before. These were in his office safe, Sarah said, handing me a folder. Inside were legal documents, a drafted lawsuit claiming half my company scheduled to be filed after my due date. There were also emails between Mike and Jean from R&D planning how to convince me to sign over shares. My phone buzzed. It was Tom. For once, I answered. Julia, he began, his voice heavy with guilt. I can't live with this anymore. Mike, he's done this before. 3 other women, successful business owners. He dates them, marries them, and then uses lawsuits and blackmail to take everything. Why tell me now? I asked coldly. Because you're pregnant, he admitted. And because he's getting violent, just like with the others. Linda's voice echoed in my mind from last week's investor meeting. Such a shame about Julia's mental health struggles during pregnancy. Perhaps the company needs steadier leadership. By the afternoon, I was in my new penthouse apartment. Security cameras were installed in every room, along with panic buttons and a direct police line. James brought in a team of lawyers, cataloging every email, text, and recorded conversation. Statements from Mike's previous victims poured in. They'd been waiting for someone to finally expose him. Other women business owners are ready to help, Sarah told me. We've got your back, Julia. No one messes with one of our own. 2 weeks later, my water broke early. Don't call Mike, I gasped between contractions. Only Sarah and James stayed with me through 18 hours of labor. My daughter, Emma, came into the world screaming, her tiny lungs filled with fight. She's a fighter, just like her mom, Sarah said, smiling through tears. The harassment began almost immediately. Where's my wife? You can't keep my child from me. Mike slurred in a voicemail. You ungrateful, after everything our son did for you. Linda hissed in her daily messages. The threats escalated. Sign the company over or everyone will know what an unstable mother you are. One email read. I'll destroy everything you've built. But Emma gave me strength. Looking at her tiny face, I knew I had to end this, not just for me, but for every woman Mike might target next. Sarah, I said, remember that encrypted folder we found? The one with all the communications between Mike, Linda, and our competitors. Sarah's eyes narrowed. It's time to use it. First, call Tom, I added. Offer him immunity for his testimony. And Mike's latest threats? Let him threaten, I said, my voice steely. Every message, every call, every email, more evidence. He thinks I'm weak. He's wrong. But I wasn't hiding. I was hunting. He wanted a war? Now he's got one. The awakening wasn't just about discovering Mike's true nature. It was about rediscovering my own strength. Sarah was already in action, leaking the security footage of Mike's violence to the potential investors of his competing skincare line. Your seed funding's gone, Mike. No one wants to back an abuser, I told him over the phone. You're destroying everything I worked for, he shouted, his voice cracking. No, I said firmly. You did that yourself. James filed a restraining order, armed with mountains of evidence. The judge didn't hesitate. This is one of the strongest domestic violence cases I've seen in years, they declared. Then came the bombshell in court. Tom spilled every detail of their long-running scam. Mike and Mom targeted wealthy women, he confessed. I played the pathetic brother, while they planted employees, stole trade secrets, and filed lawsuits. Julia was supposed to be the biggest score yet. The fallout was swift. Linda's country club membership was revoked the same day her involvement went public. One by one, Mike's past victims came forward. The DA's office uncovered an investment fraud scheme spanning years. 7 counts of fraud, Mr. Harrison, the prosecutor announced. You're looking at 15 years minimum. As the dust settled, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing with support messages. Sales doubled, then tripled. 3 years later, I'm sitting in our London office, opening the doors to our 10th international store. Emma is in my office, playing with her blocks, a little warrior, growing stronger every day. Julia. Sarah says casually, poking her head in. People magazine wants to feature you in their Women of the Year issue. I smile, the weight of my journey reflected in that single moment. Occasionally, Mike writes from prison begging for forgiveness. The letters go straight to the shredder. Linda lost everything, her reputation, her social standing. Last I heard, she was living alone in a small apartment, consumed by shame. As for Tom, he's working 2 minimum wage jobs to pay off his gambling debts. At least he's honest about it now. I stand at my office window overlooking the city skyline. They tried to break me, steal my company, ruin my life. Instead, they made me unstoppable. Success really is the best revenge. Ready for the call, Sarah? I ask, turning back to my desk. Always, she replies with a grin. Let's show them what a single mom with a dream can do. What would you do if you discovered your spouse wasn't just emotionally and physically abusive, but had a history of systematically targeting successful women in a calculated scheme? Would you prioritize personal safety and quietly escape, or would you fight back to expose them and protect future victims? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life experiences that remind us strength often comes from our darkest moments. Together, we can help others recognize the signs before it's too late. Hi, everyone. I'm Nancy, and this is the story of how my life turned upside down. I never thought I'd be sharing something like this, but here we are. On the surface, everything seemed perfect. At 25, I was thriving as a software engineer at TechFlow Solutions, living with my dad, David, and my stepmom, Karen, in our suburban home. My birth mom passed away from cancer when I was just 5, and Dad remarried when I was 12. Karen brought her own children into the mix, Tyler and Ashley, now 19 and 17. Nancy, honey, could you help Ashley with her college applications? She's struggling with the essays. Karen called one evening while I was deep in my coding. Sure, I can spare some time this weekend. Actually, Tyler needs the weekend for his gaming tournament. Maybe next week. That was how it always went. Her kids' needs came first. But it was subtle, wrapped in sweet words and family rhetoric that made it hard to push back. Have you thought about moving out? My best friend Amanda asked over coffee last week. You've got a great job. Dad wants me to stay. Plus, the house has been in our family for generations, I replied. Amanda's expression shifted. Speaking of the house, she leaned closer. James mentioned seeing Karen at the bank yesterday. My boyfriend James works at the local bank and had recently noticed Karen making frequent visits. She's been pushing Dad to put the house in her name, I confided. She says it's for estate planning purposes. Later that evening, I was helping Dad with dinner when Karen glided into the kitchen. Nancy, dear, she said, her voice syrupy sweet, I was going through some old boxes in the attic today and found some interesting family papers. Mom's papers? I perked up, always eager for any connection to my late mother. Oh, all sorts of things, Karen replied, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. Makes you wonder about family secrets, doesn't it? There was something about her tone that sent a shiver down my spine. Before I could press further, my phone buzzed. It was Grandma Martha. Come over for tea tomorrow, dear, she said. I made your favorite cookies. Grandma Martha had been my rock since Mom passed. At 75, she was sharp as a tack and saw right through Karen's facade. Your mother would be so proud of you, she told me over tea the next day. You're just like her, strong, smart, and kind. Karen's been acting weird lately, Grandma, dropping hints about family secrets. That woman's always stirring up trouble. Keep your eyes open, Nancy, and remember this house. Your grandfather built it with his own hands. It's your heritage. I nodded, but unease settled in my gut. That night, as I walked past Karen's office, I overheard her on the phone. No, he doesn't suspect anything, she whispered. Yes, I'm working on the house situation. Don't worry, everything's going according to plan. The girl, she won't be a problem much longer. My heart raced. James had been right. I needed to watch Karen closely. I texted Amanda. Emergency wine night needed. Karen's up to something. On my way, she replied instantly. And I'm bringing that file I told you about. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of unraveling a web of lies that would shake our family to its core. The annual Christmas dinner was in full swing at our house. Aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone was there. Karen had been hitting the wine hard since noon. her face growing redder with each glass. "Time for presents," Tyler announced, pulling out his phone. "Yeah," Ashley chimed in, "especially since this might be our last Christmas altogether." I caught their strange smirks but brushed it off as teenage weirdness. Everyone gathered around the tree, and that's when Karen stumbled to the center of the room. Before we start the gift exchange, she slurred, "I have an announcement to make." Dad's face tightened. "Karen, maybe we should wait." "No, David, they all need to know the truth," Karen announced, her voice wobbling from both drink and venom. She yanked a stack of wrinkled papers from her cardigan. "I found these in the attic last week, love letters between Nancy's mother and her real father." The room went deathly silent. My heart froze. "Nancy isn't your daughter, David," Karen sneered, holding the papers up like a prize. "Her mother had an affair with a man named Richard. Look at the dates, they match perfectly." I couldn't breathe. My vision blurred as Tyler and Ashley circled me, their phones trained on my face, recording every second of my humiliation. "That's impossible," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "Dad." But Dad just stood there, pale as snow, frozen in place. His silence hit me like a knife to the chest. Karen's words slurred as she pointed a finger at me. "I always knew something was off about you. You never quite fit in, and now we know why." Aunt Sarah stepped forward, her tone sharp. "Karen, you're drunk. This isn't the time or the place." "This is my house," Karen shrieked, her voice piercing. "And I want her out. No strangers under my roof." I turned to Dad, desperate. "Please say something," I begged, my voice cracking. He finally spoke, his tone hollow. I need time to process this." "Process what?" Karen snapped, shaking the letters in his face. "It's all right here. Pack your things, Nancy. You're not welcome here anymore." The room erupted into murmurs, but I didn't stay to hear them. I stumbled to my car, tears blinding me as I drove to Amanda's apartment. My phone buzzed incessantly with notifications. Tyler and Ashley had already posted clips online. "Look how the fake daughter runs away. Family fraud exposed on Christmas. Best present ever, getting rid of the imposter." Amanda opened her door, and I collapsed into her arms. "Those letters have to be fake, Nancy," she said, her voice firm. "We'll figure this out." Later that night, my phone lit up with a text from Dad. "I need some time. Please understand." Amanda's jaw tightened as she read it. "Some father," she muttered. "He doesn't even defend you." I curled up on her couch, shattered. Christmas carols drifted faintly from a neighbor's apartment, a cruel reminder of how quickly my world had fallen apart. The next few days were a blur. Clips of the incident spread like wildfire through our social circle. Friends and relatives sent messages, some supportive, others not. I cut off contact with everyone except Grandma Martha, who immediately moved me into her guest room. "I never liked that woman," Grandma muttered over coffee one morning. "Did you know she was married 3 times before your father?" "What?" I asked, startled. "Dad said she was only married once before." Grandma's eyes narrowed. "Oh, honey, she buried those marriages deeper than Jimmy Hoffa. Same pattern every time. Wealthy men with children. And those children, they always became problems." Amanda, ever the investigator, began digging. "Look at this, Nancy," she said, sliding her laptop over to me. "Karen Thompson, then Karen Williams, then Karen Reynolds, now Karen Mitchell. She's like a black widow of family destruction." James joined the effort, using his position at the bank to uncover more. "Nancy, these transactions are sketchy," he said, showing me his findings. "Your dad's accounts have regular transfers to offshore accounts, starting right after the Christmas disaster. She's bleeding him dry." My phone buzzed again. Another taunt from Tyler. "Hey, fake sis. Just making sure your coworkers know what a fraud you are." My boss called me into their office that afternoon. "This needs to stop, Nancy," they said. "I know," I replied, barely holding it together. That evening, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. "Is this Nancy Mitchell? This is Robert Thompson, Karen's first husband." My hands trembled as I put him on speaker for Amanda to hear. "She did the same thing to my daughter, Emma," he revealed. "Claimed she found evidence Emma wasn't mine. Nearly destroyed our relationship before we uncovered Karen's forgery. She walked away with half my assets before we could prove the fraud." "I need a DNA test," I declared. 2 weeks later, the results arrived. 99.9% match with David Mitchell. He was my father. No doubt about it. James burst into Grandma's house that same afternoon, waving more papers. Got it, he exclaimed. Karen's been funneling money through a fake charity. Classic embezzlement, and those letters? She bought them from a vintage store. Here's the receipt. Amanda chimed in, triumphant, and her ex-husbands are all willing to testify. She's done this before, isolating, alienating, and then draining accounts. But she's never faced consequences because no one connected the dots. Until now. My phone buzzed again, this time with a text from Tyler. Mom's losing it since you left. She's drinking more, talking crazy. Dad's starting to ask questions. Good, I muttered. Let him ask. Just then, another call came through, Karen's second husband. We need to talk, he said. Karen didn't just steal money from us. She forged documents, stole identities. I've been gathering evidence for years, waiting for someone else to see through her act. Amanda gripped my hand. This is it, Nancy. We've got her. It's time to end this, I said, organizing the files. Dad needs to see everything. Grandma Martha nodded, her expression grim. That woman picked the wrong granddaughter to mess with. We arranged a family meeting at Grandma's house. Dad, Tyler, Ashley, and all three of Karen's ex-husbands showed up. Karen waltzed in last, her confident smirk faltering as she saw the crowd, and the evidence laid out before her. When Karen walked in and saw everyone gathered, her confident smirk faltered. Robert Thompson was the first to stand. Remember me, Karen, he said, his voice cold. Or should I say Karen Williams? Or was it Reynolds back then? Dad's face went pale. What's he talking about, Karen? Karen's eyes darted around the room. David, I can explain. Let me show you, I interrupted, holding up the files. Bank statements showing transfers to offshore accounts. The so-called Christmas letters. Here's the receipt where you bought them from an antique store. Tyler and Ashley shifted uncomfortably, their phones now eerily silent. And here's my DNA test. I continued, my voice steady. 99.9% match. I am Dad's daughter. Always have been. You little. Karen lunged forward, but James stepped in, blocking her path. Mrs. Mitchell, he said calmly, I've documented every suspicious transaction you've made at the bank. Fraud, embezzlement, identity theft. It's all here. Ashley's voice trembled. Mom, what did you do? Dad picked up the files with shaking hands, flipping through the damning evidence. His voice was barely audible. 3 previous marriages, all ending in fraud accusations. Karen, who are you? David, I can explain. Karen pleaded. Save it, Robert interjected. She gave me the same speech when I caught her stealing from my daughter's college fund. Tyler suddenly stood, his face red with anger. That's why you kept pushing me not to go to college. Because you were stealing my tuition money. Karen's mask cracked, her composure crumbling. She sank into a chair, tears streaming down her face. Nancy, please, she begged, her voice desperate. I'm sorry. I was just trying to protect our family. Our family? I laughed bitterly. You and your bank account. Dad straightened up, his expression hard and determined. He looked years older. I want a divorce, he said firmly, and I'm pressing charges. Daddy, no, Ashley cried, tears spilling down her cheeks. She's still our mom. A mom who was stealing your future, James pointed out gently. Check your college accounts. The aftermath was swift and decisive. Dad filed for divorce, and Karen's past victims began coming forward in droves. Her carefully curated life collapsed like a house of cards. 1 year later, I sat in my new office as a senior software engineer. James' ring sparkled on my finger as I skimmed the latest updates. Karen was facing multiple lawsuits, while Tyler and Ashley had chosen to live with their biological father. They refused to speak to her. This Christmas was different. Dad, Grandma Martha, Amanda, James, and even Tyler and Ashley gathered at my new house. There were no hidden agendas, no secret documents, just family, real family. Merry Christmas, baby girl, Dad said, pulling me into a tight hug. His voice cracked. I'm so sorry I ever doubted you. Across town, Karen sat alone in her tiny rented studio apartment, surrounded by court summons and lawyer bills. Her schemes had finally caught up with her. And karma? Well, karma had my back. What would you have done if you were in my shoes that night? Would you have stayed quiet and gathered evidence like I did, or confronted Karen in front of everyone?